I'm Rachel Horgan. Join me each episode as I sit down with a guest co-host covering the latest business stories in the Seattle area. We'll read the news so you don't have to. This is The Weekly. Hello, everyone. I am back in Seattle. I was in Raleigh, North Carolina for a Avalara work event. It was an internal sales conference for about 800 people. And my area was the breakout session. So making sure all of those went well for the 2 days. But there was some pre-event stuff and post-event stuff. Really fun. I was telling my team how, if you guys played sports, like, it's fun to play with a rec league, like soccer, basketball, whatever. But it's so much more fun to play when everyone on the team is really good, because it just makes the game so much more fun. You can do all these fun passes and runs. And that's how I felt with this team, because everyone was so good at their job that it just made problem solving fun. And everyone had such respect for each other, from the AV team to the production team, the events team, the comms team, the sales team. So a lot of respect for those people over there. It was a lot of fun, but it was 20,000 steps a day and 16-hour days. So I am tired. Go easy on me today. I'm going to do my best. I also have to say that my guest today, I did forget that my phone was in East Coast time. So we were supposed to record at 10 a.m. Called Dave up and was like, I thought it was 1 p.m. So anyway, I want to thank Dave Siegfried, who I'm sitting here with. He is the founder and CEO of Offical AI. Hello.
Hi, Rachel.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Yeah, I'm just thrilled to be here with you, whether it's East Coast, Pacific.
Anytime. I know. Anytime. You're so flexible. Thank you. I do also want to say, at the conference, somebody passed out. And this is the third time I've been near a person that has lost consciousness. Has that happened to you? Have you noticed or been around?
Not
anybody? Recently,
no.
So I want to put this out to everybody that will listen, because the first time that happened, I panicked and I thought she was dead, and I threw water in her face and slapped her, and I was like, "Stay with me, Hillary." And then the second time it happened was at a festival I was working, and the medics came, and they were like, "What you need to do is lay them down and then lift their feet up." So I'm putting that out there. If you guys happen to be the first to respond to anybody that loses consciousness, lay them down, lift their feet up so you can get some blood back to their head. But yeah, Hillary woke up and was like, "Why am I wet?" I was like, "That was my bad." That was my bad. But at the conference, that happened, and he's okay. The medics came, but yeah, I just wanted to share that. So.
Oh man, well, I'm glad everybody's okay.
Yes, everybody's okay. Okay, so today's episode, I want to give a little background on Dave and why he's here. So he's been with Offical AI for about a year. Prior to that, he was a CEO and co-founder of LOANtuitive, a venture-backed AI-enabled marketplace in the commercial real estate industry. He spent a considerable amount of time in his career at Audiosocket, a venture-backed music licensing and technology company, and was a co-founder of SkyMode, a cloud-based mobile e-commerce platform. That is a mouthful. You've got a lot of tech and AI background.
I do, yeah.
So why don't you start with giving a little bit of an overview of what exactly Offical AI does?
Yeah, thanks. So Offical AI empowers brands and talent, athletes, actors, musicians, to create authentic AI content. And that can be a photographic image, it can be a video, it can be audio, with the goal being to provide everybody with a safe harbor where they can use their IP in a way with AI models, create authentic content, but not fear losing control.
Mm. Wow, that's really interesting, because I know people are doing all these deepfakes and using AI and without the celebrities' consent, and this whole platform is giving the celebrities the consent and using it for ways in which they can get compensated for it, right?
Yes. Yeah. So consent, credit, compensation are really the cornerstone of what we're building.
Yeah, awesome. So another question before we get into the stories today is, you were at Audiosocket for 13, 14 years? And that's interesting to me, because you are working in the music licensing world, which, if you hear my intro and outro for the podcast, I had to, purchase for that music. And that's
was it from Audiosocket?
It was not sound something. I don't know. I have to look it up.
We'll
if I knew, I would. Should we switch it? But kind of walk me through what happened after Audiosocket and how you got into Offical AI.
Yeah. So Audiosocket is a music licensing tech company that I was on the founding team of back in 2008. And, at the time, the technology shift that we were helping musicians around the world navigate was video sharing and streaming platforms. So think YouTube, Spotify, and just the difficulty that artists had at the time protecting their copyright, their IP, the difficulty in weighing the benefits of mass exposure and reaching audiences you've never connected with before versus maybe losing complete control over your livelihood.
Yeah.
So we built the company to help protect those artists, to help them monetize and kind of navigate the world of video sharing and streaming. And we also developed a patent around kind of early media provenance, though we didn't call it provenance then. And so that experience really led to my role co-founding and leading Official AI.
Well, and there was a couple steps in between that. And then we were talking earlier how PSL, Pioneer Square Labs, which is where we're at, I should say, works a little bit differently than your traditional route of founding a company. It wasn't you in your basement coming up with an idea and pitching it to PSL. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. I mean, I come up with a lot of ideas in my basement, but this one was actually formed by PSL and another venture firm called Medida.
Okay.
And so they had the initial hypothesis around Official AI. Around that time, we had sold the IP for LOANtuitive. I was looking for what's next, attending a lot of events around Seattle, seeking out that next opportunity that I'd be passionate about. And it led me to PSL. And I actually was pitching another idea.
Oh.
And Jesse Guzman, who's here at PSL, really cued in on my experience with Audiosocket and licensing and provenance. And
it's
asked
related, yeah.
Yeah. So, and asked if I'd meet with them about Official AI. And, I met with David Zager and Stephen Koenig and a few others and became obsessed and showed up the next day, uninvited, I think, if I recall, and just, let them know that I was going to be involved.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, great. Well, I'm excited to have you here, and I think you're going to have some good perspective on some of these stories. So we've got 5 for you today. The first one is YouTube is partnering with CAA to combat celebrity deepfakes. Second one is the OpenAI Microsoft DeepSeek stuff. I'll come up with a better headline later. And Smartsheet is officially bought by private equity. Then we'll talk about the new UW president. And lastly, we'll talk about a community member that we lost. The Wildrose co-owner has passed away. So, Dave, are you ready?
I'm ready, Rachel.
Okay. So this article, I did cheat a little bit. I do that from time to time if there's an article that, the guest is passionate about or they wrote or what have you. So this one came out in December, not too long ago. The Creative Artist Agency is what CAA stands for, partnered with YouTube, and YouTube is wanting celebrities to be able to fight back against some of these AI generated videos. So they have this new likeness technology. They're testing it out, and they want the celebrities and creators to kind of help them test this out. And they're going to be able to have some of those fake videos removed in kind of a mass way. The other part of this is that creators can choose to allow third-party companies to use their content to train AI models. So it's giving a little bit more power to some of these creatives. And I found this article because you posted it on your LinkedIn, and you said, I liked this quote, "Takedown systems alone won't protect talent in the AI area." So what did you mean by that? And what do you think still needs to be done in this space?
Yeah, so takedown systems are really reactionary. We spent a lot of time, back in Audiosocket days, working with YouTube and Content ID. Are you familiar with Content ID?
No, I haven't heard that.
So Content ID was launched by YouTube in 2007 as a means to mitigate liability associated with misuse of copyright when users would upload content they didn't own the IP to, as well as to empower the rights holders to monetize, block, or track the use of their IP. And Content ID is reactionary, very similar to what CA and YouTube are discussing now. So you upload a piece of content. Content ID has a database of content that it matches against. And when it finds a potential match, and potential is key here, a potential match, it sends the rights holder who's claimed it on YouTube a notification. And so in one day, you may get hundreds or thousands of notifications. I mean, there's 500 hours of video content uploaded to YouTube every minute.
Oh my God.
It's like 720,000 hours of video content every day on just YouTube.
Right.
Right. And so even before looking at generative AI and the 34 million images created every day, there's a flood of content that the rights holder is expected to review and take action on with a reactionary system. It's not manageable.
Right. It's not feasible. Right.
It's an important tool, but I think you really need a proactive approach. And I think of this, really akin to the credit card industry. So with, credit card fraud used to be you'd look at your statement, you'd see something you didn't recognize. If it was fraud, you went through this really difficult process of contacting the bank, hopefully being refunded for it. It was very reactionary.
Right.
The industry decided it was better to have a preventative approach. And so, they rolled out chip technology and kind of real-time fraud detection and instant notifications.
Like you just spent $800 at a clothing place. Is that true?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Dave, are you really spending $300 at Cheesecake Factory?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Unfortunately, yes, that was me. Yeah.
Sad to say. I mean, similar to the credit card industry, it's better for everyone when there's a proactive and reactive approach taken. And so I think that, yes, like the CIA YouTube partnership is an important step, but let's not lie to ourselves and think this is going to solve the issue. We need a proactive approach. And that's what we're building with Official AI.
I was going to say, do you feel like there's other companies out there that are working on that? Or do you feel like there's still just so much more to be done?
I think a lot of it, there's so much to be done. A lot of attention has been given to the detection companies, the reaction approach. And that's good. They're needed. I think we're one of the few that are working on that proactive approach where consent and credit and compensation are included from the start.
Yeah. What about your time at Audiosocket? What did you see that worked or didn't work in terms of this?
Yeah, I mean, it really goes back to content ID.
Yeah.
And it was so difficult to manage the flood of notifications that would come through. And we would work with YouTube and we would, head down to Venice in YouTube's facility, discuss the ins and outs, like what was working for us at the time, because we were some early users. And it was so obvious that the system was intended to do just enough back then. I'm sure it's much better now.
Sure.
But just enough to empower the rights holder to take some action, but it was so overwhelming. That actually informed some of the steps that we ended up taking where we developed a patent around kind of early media provenance and encoding permissions into content so that we could take that proactive approach. But yeah, my time at Audiosocket's really it opened my eyes to how difficult this really is and how necessary the tools are.
Yeah, definitely. I also think about the other side of it, or how hard it is to compensate artists. 1 million people are using their stuff and they're not getting, any kind of payment from that oftentimes. So it's a big problem. I have one more question. It's kind of more bigger picture and then we'll move on. But just because celebrities and artists are giving consent, and especially in your position here at Official AI, do you still think that artists partnering with AI is a good thing for culture and society? So that could be like AI videos or AI enhanced songs, maybe an AI, if AI makes a whole movie, do you think that that's, even though the artists are consenting to that and paying for it or whatever, do you think that's still a good thing overall?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So if there's consent, if there's credit, if there's compensation, is it good for humanity?
Yeah.
Art is the cornerstone of our humanity, right? It helps us understand each other, ourselves. And I see a lot of examples today of AI helping connect us to others and tell better stories. And I know there's going to be so many examples that we can't even think of.
Yeah.
There's an incredible one that I was actually fortunate enough to be there for. There was this TED Talk last year with an artist, and I'm going to not pronounce his name correctly, but I believe it's pronounced Seguo Chang.
Okay.
And he's a Chinese artist, and his medium is gunpowder.
Okay.
And he's done this incredible art around the world. And he's giving a TED Talk. He's in front of 1,000 people whose native language is English. He speaks Mandarin. Well, Ted used AI to translate his voice in real time from Mandarin to English.
Whoa.
And so he's on stage. They explain that this is going to happen. He begins to speak. He pauses because he's hearing himself speak perfect English.
Whoa.
He looks around the crowd in amazement and starts to cry.
Oh my God.
He felt such a deep connection in his ability to share his story that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. And it was a really powerful moment for everyone in the audience. examples like that, I think, are so powerful and meaningful and scratch the surface of what's going to be available to us all in the years to come.
You might be changing my mind. I mentioned this on the Vivek episode, but I'm so skeptical of AI, and I know I need to be open to it. And I think stories like that is helpful because in my mind, I'm like, nobody can replicate what artists do, but your take is it's enhancing the artist and things like that. I love it. All right. Moving on, our next one is OpenAI, Microsoft, and DeepSeek, not to be confused with deepfakes, what we were just talking about. So Microsoft and OpenAI are investigating whether the data output from OpenAI's tech was obtained without permission from DeepSeek. Basically, they're saying DeepSeek stole their secrets and they're mad. DeepSeek released this open source AI, which you can compare to ChatGPT, and they called it R1. And basically, it's just better. It's better at mimicking human reasoning. It's made faster and less expensive. And OpenAI is mad. The stock market goes down because everyone's like, oh shit, now China, it's a Chinese company. Now China is ahead of us in this AI race. Microsoft previously announced that they were investing $80 billion in AI infrastructure this year. So another thought is, this new technology doesn't need as much infrastructure or potentially doesn't. So is that still something Microsoft wants to do? That's what some people are talking about. Yeah, that's kind of my takeaway from, there's 2 articles I sent you. What else do you have to add to that?
Yeah, well, just this morning, I believe Amazon announced they're dedicating $100 billion to building out their AI infrastructure. Okay. Google announced within the last week that they were spending at least as much as Microsoft. So I don't think we're going to see less capital dollars given towards building out AI infrastructure. It's still needed. And there's a difference between developing the model and then the infrastructure you need to allow people to access that model and use it. Mm-hmm. And so that's still intensive, whether it's DeepSeek or OpenAI. What I think is really interesting, again, strong opinions loosely held, but I think it's really about like innovation versus exploitation.
Yes.
And I mean, with DeepSeek, it's really interesting because the US government placed constraints on China, which potentially led to this more beautiful solution.
Oh.
And it's come out that a lot of the advances that DeepSeek has made were only available because OpenAI and others spent $100 billion. Sure. $100 million developing their own technology. I think it's called distillation. Okay. So DeepSeek is, if you think of it as a parent-child relationship, DeepSeek is taking their model as the child and bringing it to the parent model, call it OpenAI, and letting the child ask thousands, millions of questions to inform its own knowledge, which costs a fraction of what OpenAI spent because they've already done the groundwork. Mm-hmm. And so in that sense, and I believe OpenAI and others are taking the same approach with their own newer models, right? Like it's faster, it's cheaper. You end up with the same knowledge. It's a transfer instead of it being developed from the start.
I just find it interesting because of the tone of these articles that I'm reading is that they're all upset about it. And I get what you're saying, exploiting and, they paid all this money. But there's also this level of, first, rising tide lifts all boats. So we should be happy that there's this new technology that's going to make everything better. And also, sorry, that's life. Like, when you make any kind of product, the first car or whatever, then there's going to be another car that's built on that. And you can name anything. It's all going to be built off of somebody else's first version of that. And they probably spent a lot more time and money on it. So I guess I don't understand why this would be any different.
I think a big part of this is just the geopolitical nature of it. If it wasn't a Chinese company, if this was a company based in Washington, I think there'd be a different tone and approach. Yeah. But there are national security implications. Yeah, I think that's a large part of it.
What was my next question? If they steal some closed information from OpenAI, could that be so if this is true, that they stole some of it, do you think that's problematic other than just that's not fair? I mean, I guess there could be some political...
Yeah, I mean, stealing is wrong. For the kids at home, I believe stealing is wrong. Yeah. I think it violates OpenAI's terms of service. Yeah. I'm not the first to say this. It's not a hot take, but, OpenAI claiming that it's wrong that someone takes the information that they've gathered to distill into their own model is laughable.
Isn't that their entire model is stealing from all of us, basically?
I mean, there are 29 plus court cases in federal district court right now on this very matter.
Oh, wow.
So it's a very interesting conversation to have.
Yeah. Last one on this one is just kind of the concept of owning an idea. And I've talked about this in a previous episode when we were going through, there was this biotech company that was suing about patents and such. And I was talking about, can you really own an idea? And maybe you can talk about, because you founded a few companies, like how much can be proprietary and is that also helpful? And, obviously we want people to get credit for coming up with an idea, but are you the only one that came up with the idea and just because you patented it first? I don't know. Talk to me about kind of your opinions there.
Yeah. Ideas, and this is my high level understanding, but ideas themselves are not legally protected. It's the execution of an idea. Okay. It's the result. So the expression or implementation or branding associated from that idea, that becomes protected, that becomes IP. AI is so interesting and so complex because you have ideas or human knowledge, but we haven't agreed upon who owns that knowledge that's being used to inform the proprietary models that are being built.
Totally.
And the proprietary piece of these cutting edge models being, the data that's used. I mean, that's generally kept secret. The model weights, usage, etc. So it's really interesting how it applies to AI specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're in uncharted territories and we just don't have the systems in place to be able to manage some of this in terms of IP.
So true.
Like, yeah. Okay. Our next story, our third one here is Smartsheet officially bought by private equity. We've talked about this in the podcast, so I don't know if we'll spend too much time here, but basically they talked about how they were going to be bought by Blackstone and Vista Equity Partners, and they had this waiting period, and now it's officially gone through. So it went through for $8.4 billion.
Wow.
Yeah. As a reminder, Smartsheet was launched in 2005 here in Seattle, and it went public in 2018. So now it is back to being private. If you aren't familiar with it, it's a cloud-based work management technology. So sort of kind of a workflow system. I haven't used it myself. Vista, just as a reminder, has previously acquired other Seattle companies like Apptio and Avalara, who I'm contracting with. So do you have any opinions on private equity? I have opinions, but...
I think I've said this a few times. Strong opinions loosely held. I don't have a strong opinion here.
Have you, because you're venture backed and all of this, but has that ever been like a thought to be bought by private equity with some of your companies, or?
No, I mean, my goal is to build a long lasting, valuable company that makes a huge impact.
Yeah.
Whether that exits, private equity or otherwise, doesn't really sway me. I think it's amazing what the Smartsheet team built. I mean, selling for $8.4 billion is a huge accomplishment and a big win for Seattle. So I think it's really exciting.
It is. And if you go back to Maria Curlicocchio, she was on an episode. We talked about it briefly because she was on the ground floor of that.
Maria's incredible.
Yeah. Oh my God, she is. And it was fun how she was talking about they'd like coming up and they'd go to friends and be like, how much would you pay for this kind of thing? And like just to hear the beginnings of that. And
I was one of those early users.
Were you? Oh, that's
I was. Cool. That was really cool.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about being acquired in general. Maybe not by private equity, but your company LOANtuitive was acquired. So when did you...
For less than $8.4 billion. Yeah, it was.
So when did you know that it was kind of time to do that? Looking back, do you think that was the right time? Was it the right amount? Was it the right person or company you sold to? Kind of reflecting back on that time, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was the right time for us. I'm so proud of the team that we had at LOANtuitive and what we built. I still get calls from potential customers asking if they could use the technology.
Oh.
So I think we achieved something really special. Timing wise, it was terrible. I mean, we were building LOANtuitive around the same time when the commercial real estate debt industry decreased from $900 billion in annual kind of refinancings or placement of debt to less than $200 billion. So this extreme decrease in volume, we were a marketplace. It was not sustainable for us to continue. So we found a good home for it. And I'm really excited to see what they do with the IP and direct those incoming calls from potential customers their way.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else you want to share on this one?
I think that's good.
Okay. All right. We'll move right along. There's a new UW president. So Anamari Kase, she served for about a decade, and it's going to be replaced by Robert Jones. He is going to be the 34th president. He's coming from a 9-year tenure over as the chancellor of University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and he was also the president of University of Albany. He will join UW in August, and he will have a 5-year contract. Just a little background on him. He was an agronomist and crop physiologist.
Whoa.
Yeah. He will be the first African-American president in the 164-year institution. And Anamari was actually the first female, first Latina, and first openly gay person to be president. So back to back, I thought that was interesting.
UW's heading in the right direction.
I would say so. A first female in 165 years is kind of crazy to me. UW has an annual budget of about $10 billion and supports a student body of about, do you want to guess?
Student body at UW's at 30,000?
60,000.
60,000?
Undergrad and graduate, I should have said.
I would still have been off.
I think my undergraduate was like 5,000. So yeah, this is a big school. Other fun facts from this article is that Anamari's salary in 2023 was close to $1 million. So I would venture to guess that Roberts is going to be around there. So yeah, this is a big news, big story last week. I wanted to make sure I included it. Do you have any comments on this first?
No, I mean, UW has such a huge impact on the Seattle business community, the entrepreneurial community. We're just lucky to have UW here.
And my question for you on this one was, we've got Robert coming in. He was a president of another university. He's coming in to be president here. For you, were you considering being a CEO of another company or maybe a CFO or whatever versus, was it important to you to be on the ground floor of a founder of another company when you were looking for that next opportunity?
Yeah, when I was looking for my next opportunity, I think I attended like 3 to 4 startup events per week for a few months, just trying to find that right fit. I think I'm like a 0 to 1 guy. Like I love taking the idea and getting it off the ground and finding product market fit and taking it forward. So yeah, I sought out something to build. Mm-hmm. I didn't think about moving to a later stage company.
Yeah, you just know that about yourself.
Yeah, that's
Would you
me.
ever do that in the future? Or are you kind of like, this is me?
I mean, never say never.
True.
So I can't imagine not building official AI at this point.
Yeah.
So it's hard to even imagine.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're moving on to our last one. This one is sad. So Shelley Brothers, she was the co-owner of Wildrose. She died on Sunday at age 67. She co-owned it with Martha Manning. She was being treated for cancer, but she was doing well. So this death feels sudden to a lot of us. I saw her at the 40th anniversary party on December 30th. I have had conversations with her, but I wasn't close with her, but it is still kind of weird I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience with this. So to like see somebody at a bar 2 months ago and to know that she's not here anymore is just wild. But she had a huge impact on Seattle. I think it's important to me that she gets mentioned on this episode. Wildrose opened in 1985, and it is the only lesbian bar here in Seattle. And at one point, there were only 19 lesbian bars in the entire U.S., and now I just Googled it. It's up to about 32. So the last thing I'll mention on the recap here is that the celebration of life will be held at Wildrose February 16th from 2 to 9 p.m. I am going to try to make it. So yeah, really, really sad news. I think she just, again, had a huge impact in the community, and I can't say enough about how important it is to have a space like Wildrose for me and others. We talked to you, you'd heard of her, but you hadn't interacted with her.
Yeah. I mean, I think you said it well. I mean, she had an incredible impact on Seattle. I think that'll ripple forward for years and years to come. I mean, even just us discussing her and Wildrose now, hopefully will maybe remind people of what an incredible community space it is and inspire people to kind of dig into the history and understand why it's been so impactful and why it's important to carry that forward. Yeah.
My friends asked me one time, just some of my straight friends generally wanted to know, like, why do I prefer to go to Wildrose when I'm going out? Because, Seattle's really accepting. And what is it about going to a lesbian bar versus just going to another bar? And I think, obviously there's I feel safe there. There's also, men aren't going to hit on me there, and they know that I'm interested in women. And also if I approach a woman, I'm not going to be treated in a way they all know, everybody knows that we're queer there, so it's just gonna have a different experience. And there's just this you can relate to people in a way that you can't, like, we have such a shared experience. Even if I've never met this other woman at this bar, we have a shared experience about coming out and dating women and what that's like. And as nice and great as my straight friends are, it's similar to, like, I think mom friends, you know, like, I can support my friends that are moms, but I have no idea what it's like to go through that. So I guess all that to say is I think these community spaces are really important. And if you're not part of whatever that space is for you, sometimes it can be hard to understand, like, how important it is. But I want to ask you, like, how has your queerness kind of intersected kind of with your business life? Or if you want to kind of talk about the importance of queer spaces, what's that been like for you? Yeah,
I think what you just mentioned about, you know, you preferring to go to the Wildrose. Like, when I was dating, I preferred to go to Man Ray or Rebar or
Our Place was one I went
to.
Place,
not Rebar. So it's safe, but it also flips the status quo. I mean, so often as a gay man, you know, you'd go into a bar and it's like the assumption is you're at a bar, and so everyone is straight until proven otherwise.
Yes.
And you might be interested in talking to somebody for a variety of different reasons, but in a gay bar, it flips.
Yes, that's so true.
It's so exhausting to always be overthinking any situation that I think that's, for me, that was the primary reason why I would go to a gay bar versus another bar, you know, hoping to date or find friends, because it wasn't exhausting. And I think that also carries forward into your question around how, you know, being queer carries into business for me. And I think, you know, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but it really comes down to the ability to be my authentic self. And I think that took a long time to gain comfort with and, you know, provide vulnerability in conversations like this or, you know, in my discussions with PSL or my team. And I think it's so powerful for yourself to have that self-acceptance, but also it gives others the permission to also be authentic. And that's when it really becomes beautiful. Like, people bring them their best selves when they feel safe, when they know that they're respected. And so that's really how it's amplified my role as a CEO.
Yeah. I think people can say, like, you know, Seattle's really accepting and all of that, but there's still, you know, I came out to friends for a while, and then, like, work stuff was a little bit later. And I still kind of deal with that and struggle with it, even though I know that it's probably fine, but it's still just kind of an uncomfortable moment where you're like, I think everyone's going to be chill with this, but I don't know. You never know. Or maybe that's just my, like, in my head. But that actually happened on my trip. My boss's boss, who we were, like, out celebrating after our event had ended, and she's like, "Girl, you look so good tonight. Like, do you have a boyfriend?" And I was like, I date women. And then when I get nervous, I just keep talking, and I was like, I date women. I dated somebody last year. It was long distance, and, you know, long distance is hard. Have you done long distance? Anyway, and I was like, oh God. So I feel like I still struggle to, like,
totally
say it, especially in business. I feel like I veer away from it. With friends, or friends of friends, whatever, I'm, like, more apt to bring it up. But I haven't had a negative experience with it in business, but it is something that I think about. So what about you?
Yeah, it's something that still comes to mind, and it'll be in the strangest situations where some, like, little voice in the back of my head prevents me from being myself. And it doesn't happen that often. It's rare now, which I'm thankful for, but it is still there. And I think it just comes from a lifetime of, like, constant worry, you know, wanting to be safe and accepted, which is sad, but I'm also grateful for, because I think it's been a key part of who I've become over the years. But you're not the only one.
Okay, good.
I have a lot of examples.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, Dave, this has been really fun. I have one more question for you before we wrap, which is, what advice do you have for our listeners? And this can be personal and professional, anything you want. What do you want the audience to know today?
Yeah. So it's so hard to distill all the advice that I think is meaningful down to just one piece. But I do think there's a theme. And for me, it's really been the network that I've built, the friends, the colleagues, family members that I listen to and kind of guide me. And so actually last week, a friend of mine whose name is Sam had sent a quote to me that I think is, like, kind of captures what I'm trying to convey
Yeah.
here. And the quote is, the quality of your life will, to a large extent, be decided with whom you elect to spend your time.
So it's a take a little bit on you are the company you keep, but more like the quality of life is the company you keep.
That, and just, I think, seek out people who bring out the best in you and push you to be better. And so, yeah, for me, it's just, think about the people you're spending time with. Find people that really push you to be the best.
I feel like that really ties into what I talked about in the beginning of my varsity events team, where I just felt like they were making me better. So in a professional way, yeah.
That even now, I'm so glad that you invited me to be part of this podcast. And, I'm grateful that we're now connected.
Yes,
and
totally.
I look forward to being part of the conversation in years to come.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate it. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
This has been The Weekly, with production assistance from Nick Patry. If you liked what you heard, rate us and write a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We love listener feedback, so if you have any story suggestions, comments, complaints, email us at info@theweeklyseattle.com. Make sure to check back next Sunday for the latest local business news. We'll see you next time.